The controversy surrounding Min Hee Jin, former CEO of ADOR and creative force behind NewJeans, has become one of the most complex and polarizing cases in the K-pop industry. Beyond the legal battles and corporate power struggles, her story reveals deep intersections between psychological influence, brand identity, and executive control. This analysis unpacks the major themes of the conflict, ranging from narrative manipulation to stakeholder dynamics, through the lens of psychological and business theory, offering a structured framework to understand how creative leadership can both empower and destabilize. Legal conflict and corporate power. Lawsuit against HYBE. From a psychological perspective, the legal conflict between Min Hee Jin and HYBE can be interpreted through the lens of internal locus of control. MHJ has demonstrated a strong need to regain power over her professional environment, which led her to challenge her dismissal and the management of ADOR. This type of profile tends to resist hierarchical structures that limit autonomy, which explains her insistence on maintaining creative and executive control. In business terms, this conflict aligns with agency theory, which analyzes tensions between shareholders, principals, and executives, agents. MHJ, as CEO of ADOR, acted as an agent with her own interests that eventually clashed with those of HYBE as the majority shareholder. The dispute over who has the right to define ADOR's direction reveals a breakdown in corporate governance mechanisms. Additionally, the use of legal resources to block board decisions shows a strategy of institutional resistance. MHJ is not only trying to protect her creative legacy but also to set precedents on how founders should be treated within conglomerates like HYBE. This type of litigation may have lasting implications for how creative subsidiaries are structured in the entertainment industry. Dismissal from ADOR. Psychologically, Min Hee Jin's dismissal can be analyzed through organizational attachment theory. As the founder of ADOR, her bond with the company was not merely contractual but emotional and symbolic. The abrupt rupture of that bond can trigger intense reactions such as denial, confrontation, and a drive for restitution, all of which are visible in her subsequent actions. From a business standpoint, this event represents a forced leadership transition, which often causes disruptions in organizational culture. When a charismatic leader is removed, especially in creative companies, it results in a loss of internal identity that can affect morale, productivity, and brand coherence. In ADOR's case, this was reflected in the uncertainty surrounding NewJeans' future. Moreover, the dismissal raises questions about intellectual property protection and creative vision. MHJ was not only an executive but also the architect of NewJeans' branding. Her departure creates a strategic vacuum that HYBE must fill without losing the symbolic capital she built. This highlights the fragility of creative structures within corporate conglomerates. Image management and narrative control. Prolonged public absence. Min Hee Jin's decision to remain silent for months can be interpreted as a form of strategic avoidance, a psychological response to high-pressure situations. In times of crisis, some leaders choose to withdraw to avoid communication errors or to reorganize their narrative. This behavior can be seen as a form of emotional and reputational self-protection. In business terms, this absence aligns with crisis communication tactics. By not issuing immediate statements, MHJ allowed the public narrative to fragment, something that can be risky but also useful if planning a return with a controlled message. Her reappearance with a new agency, OOAK, suggests that the silence was part of a repositioning strategy. However, this tactic also carries costs. Lack of communication can be interpreted as abandonment by key stakeholders, including fans, employees, and allies. In industries like K-pop, where emotional connection with the public is vital, prolonged silence can erode trust and open space for damaging speculation. Public opinion campaign against HYBE. Psychologically, MHJ's campaign against HYBE can be understood as a form of narrative persuasion, where an emotional story is constructed to mobilize support. By positioning herself as the victim of corporate betrayal, MHJ appealed to values like authenticity, creativity, and justice, seeking resonance with the public and NewJeans fans. From a business perspective, this relates to emotional branding. MHJ was not only defending her legal position but also her identity as a creator. By linking her image to that of NewJeans, she attempted to protect the symbolic capital she had built. This strategy can be effective but also risky if perceived as manipulative. Additionally, this campaign reveals the use of indirect communication as a pressure tool. Instead of negotiating directly with HYBE, MHJ mobilized public opinion to influence internal decisions. This kind of external pressure can alter corporate dynamics but also polarize stakeholders and create divisions that are hard to repair. Dynamics with NewJeans and their parents. Symbiotic relationship with NewJeans. The relationship between Min Hee Jin and NewJeans has been described by some analysts as symbiotic, which in psychology refers to bonds where identities become intertwined. MHJ didn't just manage the group, she conceived it as an extension of her artistic vision. This type of relationship can generate emotional dependency and resistance to change. In business terms, this translates into personalized brand capital. MHJ built NewJeans as a brand deeply tied to her aesthetic and narrative. When the creator becomes the face of the brand, any rupture can affect product perception. This presents challenges for NewJeans' continuity without her direct influence. Furthermore, this symbiotic relationship can hinder the group's ability to make autonomous decisions. If the members internalize MHJ's vision as the only creative path, their capacity to redefine their identity post-ADOR becomes limited. This creates tension between artistic growth and emotional loyalty. Indirect participation in legal actions. Min Hee Jin's involvement in NewJeans' lawsuit, through her legal firm, can be interpreted as indirect influence, a form of leadership where decisions are executed by third parties. Psychologically, this can create ambiguity in the perception of responsibility, complicating the ethical evaluation of her actions. From a business standpoint, this relates to stakeholder management. MHJ used the parents and lawyers as strategic actors to execute her vision without appearing directly in the conflict. This tactic can protect her image but also raise suspicions of structured manipulation. Moreover, the use of metadata as evidence of her involvement reveals sophistication in the legal engineering of influence. MHJ operated not only on an emotional level but also a technical one, suggesting a multidimensional strategy to maintain control without direct exposure. Accusations of emotional manipulation. Accusations that MHJ emotionally manipulated NewJeans and their parents are linked to the theory of gaslighting, where a dominant figure distorts reality to maintain control. While there is no legal evidence of psychological abuse, the public narrative has explored this possibility as part of the conflict. In business, this relates to charismatic leadership, where the leader exerts intense emotional influence over followers. This type of leadership can generate extreme loyalty but also dependency and vulnerability in the face of rupture. In MHJ's case, her departure left the group in a state of emotional and strategic uncertainty. These accusations also reveal the ethical limits of relationship-based branding. When a brand depends on emotional bonds, any internal conflict becomes a public crisis. This highlights the need for more balanced structures between creativity, autonomy, and legal protection.